Hello, hello. Let me start with a simple question, or actually, I want you to do something. And I know physical activity, not cool, but let's start. Everyone raises a hand, and I want to answer you the question from 0 to 5. How are you feeling right now? I see some 5s, I see some 4s. No one with 1s? Okay, then the average is like more or less 5. Good, that's a perfect start for today. So my name is Katarzyna. I work at Klarna since 2015, and I'm running retros since then. And today I'm going to tell you why the retros are amazing. And why am I telling you? Because I was doing the retrospective for my team, for some other teams, and I know we tend to forget about them because it's like, oh, well, everything is going fine, so we don't need a retrospective, or the team is on holidays and you don't really want to do the retrospective when someone is off or two people are away. So it's easy to forget. And then in the end, if you do it, you sometimes go to this mode when you're like, oh, well, we only have half an hour, let's just see how it's going, or what have we done? So the retrospective is not really the retrospective, it's just a weekly report. So what's the plan for today? I'm going to start with 5 whys. Why do we do retrospective? And since I like the number of 5, I will keep the 5. So then we will go through 5 steps of retrospective, or 5 stages, and I'm going to give you in the end 5 tips how to run the retrospective. And later you will have a lunch break. So keep with me for this half an hour. 5 whys. If I ask you some question, we as people, we really like to be happy with the first answer we get. We don't really go into the details. So we are fine with the symptoms, but it's sometimes hard for us to really investigate what's the root cause of the problem. And with this imaginary question, I will show you the power of 5 times asking the why question. So just hypothetically, why last Tuesday someone wasn't at work? And the answer can be, I felt bad. Fine, and we go further, and it's like, okay, you felt bad, you were not at work. But if I ask you, why have you feel bad? And the answer can be, I'm so stressed at work. And then again, why are you stressed at work? Oh, because my boss is always pushing me to deliver those features, and I never have time. And it's like, why is he pushing you so hard? Well, because he doesn't know how hard it is to deliver it. It's like, why doesn't he know? And the answer can be, well, because we never discuss about it. So the problem was not that you feel bad at work. The problem is you never do the proper planning. So you see that the problem can be hidden somewhere between the lines, but not really the first answer which you get. So therefore, it's like very powerful technique. Oh, well. So I continue, and I don't know why this is not working. But it's really, really powerful technique to see, like, if we ask a few times, then we go really into the details. And why do we retrospectives? If I ask you 5 times, then my answer would be, first of all, we want to generate the insights, how the team is doing. That's basically the report, like, what have we done last 2 weeks or during the last sprint? The second answer would be, why are we interested in those insights? Is to understand what, and more important, how it is going on in the team. And why are we interested in this again? To let the team discover the current challenges. And if you let them discover, you help them to solve the problems. And why do we even care about the team problems? Like, aren't we have our own problems? Well, if we don't have the problems in the team, we work better as a team, we achieve better results, and it's easier for us to have this trust culture within the team and to really be open and mindful for each other if we already know how to share things. So moving forward, we know why it's important to run retrospective, and let's go to how do we do this. And this 5 stages of retrospective is a very simple but powerful model where we go through each stage, and I will walk you through all of them today, and I will give you some exercises which you can do to make them fun. So the stage number 1, set the stage. This is really to engage people, to really let them talk. And don't overdo this stage. It can be short, it can be long, it really depends how many people you have. So you remember this one? I already set the stage. I talked to each and every one of you, and I forced you to do something, so you already engaged, even though it was just like, hey, raise your hand and show me the number. So during this phase, really make sure that everyone in the room is engaged. If you have a lot of people, like I do, keep this very short. If you have more people, you can play a little bit longer. So you may ask some question. What fun have you done yesterday? And then ask you, and you, what have you done yesterday? Make sure that you get this answer. And one of the exercises I really like to do, especially with the groups I'm not sure about, is this give me a face exercise, where I bring for everyone in the team, orange or a tangerine. I put the pens, markers, and I let them paint. And everyone needs to paint the face. This is very fun. It really works if you have a small team. It works if you have a bigger team. And giving the face, just painting the emoticon, it's very simple. Everyone will do it. If you ask everyone to write a sentence like, how do you feel today? We don't like to write long answers. So this is very short, and it's funny. But keep in mind, the setting the stage is not very long phase. You just want to engage everyone, but you don't want to spend 20 minutes on this. There will be more important steps further. So, not keeping it very long, gather the data. One of the most important phases. Why do we need to gather the data? If I ask you, how much do you remember what happened 4 weeks ago? What would you answer? I would be like, 4 weeks ago, well, somewhere in August. We're on holidays, or no, maybe someone went back from holidays. I don't really remember. I would need to check my calendar. So I take my phone, I check my calendar, and you've lost me, because now I'm checking my phone. And that's the mistake number one, to let the team check the phone and play on the phones, because you want them to be engaged, you want to be present, everyone, and you want everyone to be focused on what we are discussing right now, because that's important. There may be things going on in the world right now, but if your team is not really interested in sharing, checking the phone is the mistake number one you can do. So therefore, it's also important to keep the retrospective regular. Do them every 1 week, every other week, so everyone remembers something. Because first of all, it's hard to remember what happened a long time ago. And second, if there is a challenge, if there's some issue in the team, which happened 4 weeks ago, think how much frustration it can cause until today. During 4 weeks, if you have a problem and you never speak about this, oh, then you have a big problem, not even a challenge after 4 weeks. And good luck with solving that. So again, 2 exercises I like to do during this phase. One would be tweet the sprint. As I said, we like to be fun. We like a bit of joy during the sprints and during the retros. So tweeting is really nice because you can put different posts with just the hashtags where you keep it short. Event, feeling, emotion. It can be bug with process A. I felt stressed over time, work a lot. And you can generate a lot of those tweets during a short time. So you get a lot of insights, like what have we done during these 2 weeks or during that sprint? And the exercise number 2 is also one of my favorites, where you can draw the timeline for your emotions and events. And this is my timeline, what happened during 2 weeks. So you start with the awesome in the top, then you have okay and not okay. So how did you feel during those 2 weeks? And it can go up, it can go down. What you gain with this one is A. You get the events, because the person will start with events, and then you get emotions. So how did it flow during the week or 2 within the team? And you can compare later how different people in the team are feeling on different events. So for me, it would be 2 weeks ago, I was in Poland, visiting my dentist with my lovely braces, which I'm wearing 2 years, and I'm like so tired with them. And what did he said? we are going to remove them in 1 week. So next week, I'm braces free. More important, he removed already one part. So after 2 years of tortures, I can feel my tongue again. But what happened next day? As I said, I was in Poland, and I'm flying with Wizz Air, which is like the cheap airlines, but it flies to my little city. So of course the flight was delayed, and I waited a long time on the airport. Then we go down. And I was back at work, and the week was quite fun. So it was like, not good, not bad, just okay. Then we have the main day, which was super fun when we spent a lot of time together, and the Klarna Expo. And then it went down to yesterday, when I was like, repeating this presentation and thinking how it will go, will I manage, will you be stressed a lot? And now I'm standing here, and it's like, it's quite fun to talk about this and talk to you. So I'm like, I'm feeling great right now. So as you see, there are a lot of exercises which you can do, and it gives you a lot of insights. So exactly, we have the data, and now we want to generate some insights, which is the phase number 3. And during this phase, we know already what happened. We want to ask the question, why did it happen? Was it good? Was it bad? Can we do it better? Can we do it worse? What if we don't do it later? So now is the time to really focus. What should we improve and how should we improve, since we know what already happened? And there are 2 exercises which I'd like to share with you. One is the original 4. It's the simple 4 question, which Norman Kers, he's the author of retrospective, he started with those. And the question number 1 is very simple. What did we do well that if we didn't discuss, we might forget? Because it's also important to remind ourselves to praise the team, like, hey, this was really nicely done. We should keep this one in the future. And the question number 2 would be, what did we learn during this time? Question number 3, what should we do differently for the future? And are there still any problems? What still puzzles us? Do we have some issues and risks? So if again, we take the example of me preparing for this retrospective, what went well? Well, I submitted the talk, I did some research, and I prepared. What did I learn? That incidents will happen, and the time flies. So probably if I start preparing the slides 2 weeks before the presentation, because, oh well, there's still so much time before, something will happen during the time. Definitely something will happen during the time. And if I ask myself, what should I do different next time? The simple answer would be, I should start with the slides much more earlier. And what still puzzles me, the main question is, will you like this presentation in the end? Or you will just say, that was a complete waste of time. And this is one example. And another example, which is more playful, is the setting the course. So if you want to engage the team more, if you see they are going through a hard time, and you want the retro to be a little bit playful and joyful, start with a simple map. You can draw it, you can print it. There are a lot of maps online. And you have this little sheep, and you are asking the question, where is the treasure to be found? So what's our goal? Where do we want to go? What do we want to achieve? Then where is a cliff to be safe from? So what are our risks? What is the challenge? What should we keep in mind not to do? And then keep the course for it. This is everything which is going well in the team right now. We are doing our stand-ups. We are doing processes. We're doing a lot of things which we like, and we want to keep in mind to keep doing them. And then change the course for. This is basically what we don't want to do. We try the stand-ups at 8:30. Oh, well, everyone is late. Let's start them at 8:35. Just the simple questions. It doesn't need to be big. It can be very small, but try to find those things. And if we go forward, we know what happened. We know why it happened. We know that it was good or bad. Now we need to decide what to do. And usually during the phase, I tend to go to the same exercise, which is the dot voting. So once you have all your post-its on the wall, give everyone in the team 2 or 3 dots to put on those post-its. and then decide with the post-its which topics do you want to discuss later. So in the end, this phase is the longest one, although the voting is very short. So you don't need to keep the vote, and of course you can do a lot of different ways how to vote, but you don't want to focus a lot of deciding which post-its we should discuss or which topics we should discuss. You should rather take your time to do the discussion. So discuss, discuss, and discuss again. Because the output of this phase should be the action points for the future. So after you decide on 3, 4, 5 points which you want to discuss, you must have action points later. And this is very important, because if you just discuss and then you just say, oh, we'll try it. Yes, you may try it, but you will not follow it up next time. You may forget to do it. So really make sure you have your action points noted down and they are clear. And another advice for me would be, don't overdo this. So if there are a lot of problems, or let's say you haven't done retrospective for a while, there may be a lot of topics to discuss. And that's good, and we want to discuss them. But what I said, do the retrospective regularly. So you will have only 2 weeks, probably, to try those things. You don't want to make a revolution during this time. You just want to try a few things and see how it goes. If you change everything, it may not work as you expected. So keep this one short. Make 5 points the most. And then go with those ones. And you will have time during the next retrospective to discuss the ones which you didn't discuss, if this is still a problem after all. And the last part, close the retro. How many times did it happen that you were discussing this phase, and someone started knocking on the door and waving you through the glass, saying, your time is over in this room? A lot for me. So it's very easy to forget about this part and then just leave the retrospective still open. We still discussed things, but we didn't properly close it. So during this phase, you can keep it very short. Make yourself a clock alarm 2 minutes before the end of retrospective. If you know that there will be a discussion, make it anyway, just to have those 2 minutes, to say thank you to your team, to say thank you to everyone, to say, this was a great job during last 2 weeks. You're amazing people. And if you have more time, then make it more elaborated. You can ask everyone to say why you are thankful, because your team is a rock stars. They are doing an amazing job, but you need to remind them about this. And we know about it, but we forget to do it. So praise everyone, and maybe if you have time, ask everyone to say thank you for something to another colleague. Well, with that said, we know already why we do retrospective, we know what are the stages of retrospective, and then let's go through my tips and tools how to run the retrospectives. Tip number 1, ask someone who has experience. There are a lot of Scrum Masters at Klarna, even though I'm not sure if there's still official title as a Scrum Master after all those changes, but there's a lot of people who are running retrospective, and they are very happy to help you to do your first retrospective. Or maybe if you are bored already with your retrospective, ask someone to just join and show you some other tools. Maybe some different techniques, maybe they do it differently, so you will get this fresh feeling on your retro. Tip number 2, Retromat. This is my favorite tool, and if you just Google Retromat, you will go to this page. If you do your first retro, you can read about different stages. What is really nice with this tool, it gives you already different exercises assigned to different stages. So in the English version, there's 133 different activities, and they are separated for set the stage. You have like, I don't know, 20 different setting the stage ways. If you go for gather the data, you will also get like 30 different exercises. So you have endless possibilities, basically, to create your retrospective. And one extra thing which this one will give you is the random generator. So if you didn't prepare for the retrospective and you just got the notification in your calendar 10 minutes to your retro, you can use this one. But don't overdo it, because you actually should be prepared for the retro. So you should think about before. What do you want to target the retrospective for? How was the last 2 weeks? Or how was the last sprint? Was it good and we want to celebrate? Or was it really painful and we want to focus on like, okay, why it was painful and we want to target better actions later? But just try it out and see how it goes. You can also get some inspiration here. And something very similar to RetroMat would be this retro kit. And this is done by a Swedish company, which I will not mention here, but, well, they are doing playlists. And I think this is what they done, except of the playlist, this is what they done really great. The retro kit, as you can see, are the ready-made recipes. So you can pick the color, basically, which one you want to pick out of the ready cards. And then you have the full recipe for the retrospective. It starts with like, well, pick one exercise of the warm-up exercises. Then the green one shows you basically setting the course, the sheep exercise, which I told you about. And then you have all the checklists, like like the dot voting. Then you need to write down your action points. Then you need to discuss them, and so on and so on. So even if you've never done the retrospective and you just pick the random color out of it, you can do it. It really helps. And this is publicly available. You can just Google it and you will find this PDF. So also feel free to try it out. Rotate, my tip number 4. If you're a Scrum Master or accountable lead or a competence lead, and actually that's your duty to the retrospective right now, and you feel, okay, every time I'm doing those retros, and if you ask me, I really like those exercises which I showed you, but if we do the 4Ls, or if we do the Twitter exercise every other week, my team would be so bored with the Twitter that they will not be like, oh yes, Twitter! They will be like, Twitter again, seriously? So ask different people in the team to run the retro. You can show them the tools, you should help them to do it, but with rotation, you will get those personal touches in the team. So they will try to show you different things and different feelings than I can see, and everyone will focus a little bit on something different during the retrospective. And also one extra thing, everyone will learn how to do it, so it's also a nice skill to have later. And my last advice, repeat, repeat, and repeat. Do the retros. There is only one bad retrospective, the retrospective which didn't happen. So to summarize what I was talking about during this talk, I started with 5 whys. Why do we do retrospective? Why they are important? And also just with some 5 whys exercise. Always try to figure it out. What's the root cause for the problem? Don't be happy with the symptoms. And it doesn't need to be retrospective. It doesn't need to be feeling. It can also be project-based. It can be personal-based. Why? Why do I need to do it? What's the really benefit of having this one? Then we went through 5 stages of retrospectives. So we set the stage, we gathered the data, we generated the insights, then we decided what to do, we wrote our action points, and we didn't forget to close the retrospective. And in the end, I gave you 5 tips. So use the RetroMat, ask someone for help, you might check the retro kit, you should rotate, and you should do the retrospectives. So now I would like you to, all of you, to pick one thing which you really liked during this presentation, and you would like to try it next time. And you were amazing, and it was really nice to talk to you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Katarzyna. Thank you, Katarzyna. Any questions, please?
One thing that I usually do when I'm doing retrospectives is first thing to remind the people that they are in a safe environment and that they can really openly talk about the problems. Yes. I think that that's really important also to point out that people sometimes feel a little bit self-aware, I would say.
I would very much agree.
And to go back to the focus part that you were talking about, Maybe as part of the team agreements, come to a no device policy. That's also a good thing during the retros. Yeah. The question that I really had for you is, what do you think about being able to identify from the things that you are seeing in the retro or talking about as problems, about the control that you have over those issues? Sometimes what I ran into was situations that were completely out of our scope and control, that were maybe company policy stuff or things like that, where you spent hours and hours discussing possible scenarios of solution that were not really actionable items for the team, but that were out of your hand. What do you think about it?
So I'd say it's always during the retro just to mention it, even if we can't do anything with this. This is a part of the last sprint. This happened. We have those feelings. It didn't go well, or it went well, or as you said, we didn't have control. But the retro, for me, is the time when you share the feelings. So if we were stressed, it's also important to say, okay, we were stressed because of this. And how do we prevent it in the future? So maybe, yeah, we won't have control again, but maybe we will be better prepared. What if we don't have control? Should we stress so much? And maybe we can just lose a little bit in the end.
Thanks for your talk. How do you retro on a retro? Like, how do you give feedback that the retro rubric is not so good on your team?
Oh, well, I need to figure it out this. That's a good question.
I guess it should be something that you could, at your retro, put a sticky note and
okay,
say,
but this you can,
I don't like the way we do our retros, but maybe say, the problem could be, if I say this, I feel like I'll get judged, right? So I might not want to say some things at the retro.
But you can also make it in the last phase, so closing the retrospective. There are different ways to do it. And like I just presented one where I say thank you to everyone. But you can also do some plus and delta, basically, or you can do these letters, basically, where after the retrospective, everyone writes a letter, or you can send an email if you want to be more, okay, email will not be anonymous. But you can everyone gets a postcard, and basically you put the stamp on it, like, give a note for this retrospective from 0 to 5, and then if everyone writes that this retro was 1, then I as a Scrum Master will know, okay, it wasn't a good retrospective.
Does everyone hear me? So basically, since you have to talk about kind of your feelings about how the sprint went or how the work is going, don't you think that there must be some like pre-retro activity where people disconnect and they kind of stop their whatever they were working on, they stop thinking about it, so that they are fully concentrated in the retrospective?
I would say in the perfect world, yes. But also the retrospective, you can plan it on different times. So you can do it end of the day. Like if your sprint is 2 weeks long, then do it on Friday, last day. But why don't you do it on Monday morning, the next day, where you, after the weekend, you're already rested and you just come fresh to the work and you try with the retro then.
Hello, thanks for the talk. And do you think it's a good idea to discuss the actionable points from a previous retrospective in the setup, in the warm-up phase?
So this one should be after the warm-up or before. I would say do it after the warm-up, before you go to gather the data, because the warm-up is really to engage everyone. And it's not about discussing what we've done 2 weeks ago. It's more to checking up. How is it going? Are you fine? Tell me one word. Because if you start with discussing the previous points, there will be people who have more opinions and they will take over the discussion. And then you, of course, have silent people in the team, which will be like, well, I'm not talking because I don't want to talk about this one. So you will get the silent people, and you want those to be engaged later. And then by doing this in setting the stage, you will lose this opportunity to make them talk.
Thanks.
That's all we have time for. Thanks once again. Thanks, everyone.